Welcome everybody, my name is Vincent. I'm going to make a brief presentation on a program which is called Rhino for SharePoint. That's a program I developed a few weeks ago. This program is totally free and you can download it on my website there, which is http://getaptitude.com. You'll find a section resources, and in that resources section you'll find a direct link to the download page for Rhino for SharePoint. So you'll be able to download a zip file, which is really easy to install, and organize your work quite easily through XAML structured language application setting files, I should say. Let me explain you a little bit about the concept of Rhino for SharePoint. If you open any new 3DM document, you'll find that you have a possible access through the file notes to a notes actually section in any 3DM document. Rhino for SharePoint is using that note section, which is normally used to place comment on the content of a document or anything else, to place what we call XAML structured notes. In fact, this will allow you to organize and structure properly the comments, and organize actually properly the comments, so that you're sure that each document has got a structured definition of its content. So what is XAML file? I've got a sample there, which is a default file used by Rhino for SharePoint. You'll understand that later. You've got, for example, there doc ID, which is the unique identifier of the document, which can be defined by default. So there you've got default one, but you can have another one which is automatically generated through Rhino for SharePoint. And you've got several what we call elements, which describe, in fact, for the one who are familiar to database, the field name and its content. So there I've got also name, and you've got there the name of the author, which is straightforward after the field definition. The advantage of a XAML structured language is that it can be controlled in terms of data. So for example, if I'm looking at this field, which is called eta, it can have only several values. So if I go into what we call schema there, so structured schema, XSD file, I find back my field definition name with what we call enumeration, which means a series of values that can be contained there in that field. So you're really organizing properly the XAML notes by typing any type of data into these two documents, a schema and a XAML file. So to work with Rhino for SharePoint, first of all, of course, you need to define that XAML file and that schema file, which are present on your hard drive. It's normally described on my website. You've got a help section for that. How to do that? That's easy. You've got two methods. So if I briefly introduce you to the interface, you've got there the ribbon section, which allows you that's actually access to the control of the functionality of the software. And you've got there kind of view, that's a grid there, which allows you to edit what we call metadata, so the XAML note data. You got there a preview of the existing data. You don't have to open the document to have the preview. And you have there the access to what we call the Windows search index, which is really powerful, and that's what I'm going to show you in a minute. First of all, and you've got there a little menu which is quite fairly easy to use, so that's why I'm saying first of all, let me show you how you can work with Rhino for SharePoint, I should say traditionally. So you just go to the menu, open file, and find, for example, any Rhino document. I've got one in my temp folder. I'm going to use this one, for example. If you open a document which contains straightforward metadata, you've got on that section, which is the edit section, the description of the metadata that has been placed into your document. It tells you several interesting things. First, it tells you that you've got an object which number is 94026, whatever. It tells you that you've got information about what we call the state, the eta, l'état we call that in French, of the document. So it tells you there that the document is being actually modified, so it's written en cours, but you can modify the state if you want through that window. It tells you that the author is Vincent, so that's me, that's my name. That is concerning here the file which is called tinamux3dm, and you can straightforward modify information. The customer is not CMNs. You can have a list if you want. It can be, I don't know, CGTEL, why not? Phone number to say for CGTEL and whatever. So you can link actually this information before placing them into a document. You can link that to another database, for example, if you want. That's really easy to do. That's an open source software, so if you want to make this kind of modification, I can do that for you if you want on demand, or you can do it yourself because I can give you the code if you want. That's quite well structured, so that's easy to understand. And you got this famous doc ID, which is actually automatically generated once you open a document or once you create a new metadata definition. It's using the Windows time, and it's actually what we call a timestamp, so it just translates the Windows time into a series of numbers. That's what I've done there. That's the way it works. But you've got several processes you can do for that. But the first way to open, so you can see there that you can edit data, modify them quite easily through that little window. Let me purge that grid, and you've got the second possibility to work with Rhino for SharePoint. That's what we call connect index function. If you click on that button, it will ask the Windows search index to give Rhino for SharePoint a list of all 3DM files present on your hard drive. So that's fairly interesting because it's looking everywhere on your hard drive. You've got several sections, you've got several partitions. It will look on any partition of your hard drive. There's another interesting point, is that the list of your files are sorted. Because they are sorted, you can view rapidly if you've got double file on your hard drive. There, for example, we've got a file which is duplicated. One RAID 3DM is existing into that folder, which is program file or whatever, and into that folder ctemp one RAID 3D. So that's something which is totally wrong in terms of data. So you have to modify that. So you can modify, delete data elements and all these things. On that list, you can do several things. If you click on the document, you've got there the series of information describing the document. So you can have comments that has been placed there. You can have the number, the state, okay, the doc ID. You can also modify that element by right-clicking and edit, and it will allow you to edit the comment. Okay, the metadata of the document. And you can, if you purge a window if you want, you can also open the document using Rhino. So it will open that document so that you check if that's a proper document you want to modify or not. So there is a document, and I can verify if it contains XAML notes. So you see the structure there of the note, which is really a XAML file, not more, not less. Okay? Let me close that. That's the second interesting point, this list of all series of data. As long as this document, or the selected document, does not contain any metadata, which is the case there, it asks you if you want to configure it. So you're saying, yes, I want to configure it. And if it contains any comment, it will take the existing comment and place them into the comment section. So there, the document has been described. You've got there a new doc ID, which has been described for that fastener. Yeah. You've got several default definition, and you can, if you want, edit that comment and modify them, for example, for the author name being, say, Ted. You have to save the document once finished, once modified. Second interesting element is that you can place that 3DM file into SharePoint. So you've got this little button here, which allows you to check if there is an existing connection to SharePoint. First of all, you check if this connection is working. As long as this connection is working, then you'll have the possibility to send that document straight forward to SharePoint. So here, I've got the new button, which actually is displayed now, which appears, and which tells me that there is a possible connection to SharePoint, so I can send that data to my database. So I will right-click on that document and send that document to SharePoint, which is what I'm doing right now. Once this document is sent to SharePoint, I'll be able to, for example, start a workflow process, which is what we are going to do right now. So if I open SharePoint, you've got there Rhino doc section, and in the Rhino doc section you can see rapidly that you've got the fastnet which has been described with the definition modified by Vincent. I tell you what, the author name is Ted, modified by Vincent. You've got several other elements to describe your document, and you've got interesting thing that's what we call workflow, which has been displayed there. Validation CAO means that there is a specific workflow which is not working on that document, library. So this is what we call a document library for the one who are not familiar to SharePoint. And this Rhino doc, if I open actually the server, that's Windows Server 2008, I've got there the access to my mailbox, and this mailbox is Jean-Philippe Paris mailbox, which is my chief actually. And if I just check his mail, he'll probably receive automatically a new mail saying that he's got a new document that is now available for validation onto the SharePoint database. That's what we call a workflow process. And then it will probably modify the state as long as it's validated and receive a new mail. And Vincent, who is the author of that document, will receive a new name. So that's something you can organize that way using SharePoint. So it's fairly interesting to work with SharePoint and associate this with Rhino for SharePoint. So if you got any question considering that product, please be free to ask me information on that. You've got my mail, which is available on my website there in the contact section. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll be glad to answer you for any new question. Thank you very much. Goodbye.